Hi, and again welcome to a little video tutorial with me, Jonas Birme. I'm the co-founder and VP R&D of Ivan Technology. So this time we're going to have a look at how we can automate testing, and what we want to automate and what we want to test here is common use case when you are working in video streaming and with ad monetization. So what we're going to build here is automating testing to verify that the ad impression tracking is correctly sent in our video player. And in order to do that, we are going to use some tools. One tool we are going to use is something called Playwright. And what that is, you can find it here, playwright.dev. So this is a tool that helps you basically run browser tests or run tests in a browser. And so we are going to test that our web player is actually firing off the right beacons at the right time. So we're going to use that as sort of the driving the test. What we're also going to use is that we need to have an ad server. Since how it works is that when a client wants to display an ad, or a video player wants to display an ad, it needs to ask an ad server for what ad to be shown, and that decision is of course made on a lot of things. For example, how many impressions has been bought by an advertiser, and all those things. So that's quite advanced thing, an ad server. And when we want to automate test, we want to have something that is deterministic. We want to have it repeatable, and we want to have the same result in the same time. And for that, we cannot use a real ad server. So we would need to use something else. And for that, there is another tool which we build at Ivan. It's called a test ad server. And what this test ad server basically provides is that it sort of enables the same interface as a real ad server would do. But it will, in the response to this request, it will return always a fixed set of ads, depending on the duration, of course, that you request. But also it will contain the content or the links for these tracking URLs back to the ad server. So here's it on GitHub. It's open source, and you can install it in your infrastructure environment. But in this example, we will use the hosted solution in open source cloud. And a quick recap of what open source cloud is. It's I would say basically a way for lowering the barrier to get starting with open source services. I mean, of course, I could take the servers and deploy it in my own infrastructure by building an image and deploying it and running it as a task on AWS or Google or whatever cloud platform you're using. But that, of course, takes a little bit of effort, and not always you have an infrastructure. So for that, we have open source cloud, which is a place where this is hosted, and I pay a subscription fee to have access to it, and then the part of the revenue is actually fed back to the creators of the service. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm already logged in, and you can see in other videos how to create an account and all things. I will not go through that. So we can create a test ad server here, called tutorial. Which basically spins up this ad server that we will be using, and I will show you later how we actually will automate this process. But now I will do this manually, and just to give you an idea of what this is. All right, so that's up and running. We can open up the Swagger, and we see those endpoints here. So let's try to get an ad. We can try it out here. Let's say we want to have 10 seconds field. We can enter user ID hello, just to give an example, and then we can hit execute. And here's the curl request. So it's the parameter duration is 10 and UID is hello. And in response here we get all the ads in the standard called VAST. And here we have the impression tracking URLs, start, first quartile, midpoint, third quartile, or complete. And these are events that the ad player should fire off at these different times. For start, 25%, 50%, 75%. So you track how much of the ads is actually viewed. And now you see this is actually hitting back to this test ad server, and the reason we do that is that you then have another endpoint where we can fetch the events. So now we have this session ID. We can take that out, and we can get that session here. So this was sent in, and the response, but we also can use the session ID to get the tracking events that has been received. So this should be empty at this time because we haven't fired off anything. Okay, so that's how it works. And another way of getting that session is to actually use the user ID that we had. And we can do that by going here, and we can get the user ID. We had hello. So now we get a list of all the sessions. So this is a way to find out the session for this user ID. So if you provide user ID in the request, we can find the session this way. So that's how the test ad server works. But we want to build this into a test pipeline, basically. So let's start by creating an empty node project, which I've initiated here. And we are going to start by installing some tools that we need. We will install Parcel, which is it's the what do you call it, a bundler, web bundler, or packager, or what you call it, that we will use to serve our video player here. So in this tutorial we will not build a full-fledged video player, but we will need to build something to sort of emulate the player that we would like to test. And this is something you obviously normally would already have, and then you will build a test around that. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to build it here. So I'll start by installing that, and we need to have the actual player, and we will need to have some code for that. So start with an index.html file. And I prepared it here, and we will be using this is very basic. We will set up an input field for the actual video to play, and then we will have an input field for the ad tag URL, basically the ad request here. So we will change this to demo tutorial instead, that we just created, and just as a default. And here we will use the Google's IMA SDK for actually inserting the ads, and we will need to implement a few more functions to do that. And this is basically code I have copied from Google's tutorial on how to work with IMA, so it's nothing nothing strange. The only thing I've added, of course, is the web player that we're going to use. We could use whichever HTML web player that you like, but we chose to use, in this case, a web player that we have developed at Ivy. So it's also available and it's also open source. So we do some initialization, connecting some event listeners to this button. We create the player elements and everything like that. And now we should be, and then we'll set up the IMA and all those things. That's basically just copied and paste from the tutorial. So you could, from the Google's documentation. So let's try and run that. Let's modify our package.json by adding a script here. We can call it player. We will run a local server to serve that. Like this. So now I should be able to just run player. Of course, I need to install that dependency, the iWin web player core. Takes a bit of time, but now we are ready. Okay, so let's go to this page, and you see here it's very basic, not that fancy styling here at all. So this is the first, is the actual URL to the content, the actual content, and here is the URL to the ad server. Okay, so let's hit load, and then we can play. So now we are first shown these 30 seconds of ads, and these ads are returned from the test ad server. Okay, we'll need to wait. I will just to show you that the content will start playing after the ads. So this is a very, very simple player using the Google IMA SDK. Okay, so this is the basic play that we have and we will use for this tutorial. And this is the play that we want to verify that the tracking is sent correctly when you're watching the ads. All right, so that's that. So what are we going to do next? Well, next thing is to actually write some tests so we can test this. And as I said previously, we will use Playwright for that. So we'll need to install that first. Playwright/test. All right, so now we have installed that. Then we can create a folder called tests. And we also need to have a configuration for Playwright. And you can look at the documentation on how that should look. And let's start building it. So we first need to import the config. We'll create an object here, the directory for tests. And then we are going to configure the actual web server to start, which the browser will connect to and actually run. And this is the player that I just showed you that we will use. And we will need to have projects here, and we can use you can call it Chromium, and we use devices, desktop Chrome. I think we need that for video. And we also need to set some launch options because we are running it non-HTTPS since we run it locally. So we'll disable this for now. Or it's more that it's course related things that we need to do for now. But this is just running locally anyway, so it's fine. Okay, so now we have that basic done. What you also need to do once you've written this configuration file is that you need to install the dependencies. So let's, and I mean the dependencies for Playwright, like the Chromium browser. So let's create a script here to install Playwright dependencies. And run that. And that was fast. I guess I already have the dependencies installed. If you're doing this yourself first time, this actually takes a little bit of a while. But luckily that was already done, so I don't need to do much more there. Okay, so let's go to the testing. We want to test the ad tracking, right? That's what I say. So let's build a spec file here. So we have ad tracking spec.ts. Start by importing test and expect from Playwright. I know we will need a little bit of utility function for timing, so I created that. I'm not going to go that much into detail what that does. And then we will start writing the test. For everyone that's been working with Jest or similar, you probably are familiar with the sort of syntax here. And I'm not going to go into all the details of Playwright because that's a chapter of its own. So just follow me what I do here, and you can dig into the details later on what it actually does when it comes to Playwright. Let's generate a user ID. Not hello this time, use something that's a little bit more unique. And then we need to set the ad tag, and we need to set the ad server URL. And in this case we can use this tutorial that we have here, which I already have created. So let's use that one. No slash in the end. So constructing the ad tag, you will use the ad server URL with the duration 5, just to keep it short, and then the UID. Right. So once we've done that, we want to make the browser go to the index page. We will fill in the ad tag input field with this ad tag, and then we'll click the load button. And what this will do in the background is will actually call the ad server for Avast on doing the ad request. And what we can do before we continue with the next step is to ensure that this call has been issued and received and that the response is okay. So we basically wait for that response. We check that the response URL, because this one will actually trigger or any type of response that the browser is receiving, and verify that that's actually that URL. And then we will hit the play button, and then wait for 5 seconds. Okay, so that's done. We started it like I did manually. I pressed the play, but now I want to find the session for this this actual event or this session. And for that, as I showed you before, I could use this users endpoint to get the actual, or get the list of all the the sessions for this user, and I can parse that. In this case, I know I will only have one, so I will take the first one in that list. So now I have the session ID, and with the session ID I can actually get the events. But to do that, we need to do some polling. But actually, we need to poll this events endpoint to see whether it's been received. So we will develop a function here that we call wait for tracking events. And to speed this up, I will just copy and paste here when I prepared. So you see here, we will try it 3 times. We will do a fetch on this endpoint to get the events. If it's okay, we will log the responses or each event into this this map, and we will wait for 1 second. So eventually this will be filled with all the events, hopefully. So that function will wait for those tracking events. So then we can add that here in our test. And then we could actually do the verification what we expect it to be. So we expect all these events have been fired off. All right, so that's that. I think we are ready to try this out now. So let's do that. Let's add that we actually will be running this test into our package.json. And that's basically just writing play write test. And all right, this will be exciting the way that this works. So now we're just writing npm tests, and so we will start running one test using one worker. Okay, it did time out, and that's a good question. Why did it do that? It was undefined. So do I have a bug here? Probably somewhere. Let's see. Demo tutorial. That's right. Okay. Let's debug this. We can do that by writing. I think it's called debug. So now it's opening up this browser. It actually starts there. Actually playing. Oh, okay. Now it worked. So there might be some timing issue there. You could tweak that a little bit later, but not now. But you saw what happened here. It was actually firing off and using the testnet server to verify these events. We could actually see if we list all the sessions here we should have one, which should be this one. So we can verify, we can actually verify that we have received all these events. It should be saved here. Right, so here we have all the events that was actually fired from the client, and that's what we're using in our test to verify that. All right, so that's good. The only thing with this is that we are using a live service, and if we want to make this really deterministic and isolated for this test, we would actually like to spin this up and tear it down for each test. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to extend it with that functionality. And to do that, we will need to update our playwright configuration. So we will add something to these projects. We will start by adding a setup, which we have a file called global setup.ts, and then we need to have a cleanup as well. And then we need to specify dependencies here. Setup test ad server. Okay, so this will call the global setup.ts on setup, and then on teardown to call global teardown.ts. So let's write this file first. So let's start with the setup.ts. Right, and then we also want to automate the creation of this ad server. So let's remove this ad server now, so it's not in the way, and then we can automate that. And to do that, we will install a SDK for open source cloud. That's found, it's called OSS Client Core. Right, so that's installed. We will also use an utility function for some timing, and then we can set up, create a test ad server, to call it. Sorry, right, we could write some console logging, creating a test ad server, something like that. And then we need to create a context for open source cloud, basically setting some access tokens and reading that from an environment variable. We can just log fail to create test ad server, something like that. And then we need to get an service access token for this particular service, and it's called Ivin test ad server. And we will create an instance. We could call it tutorial. No. Ivin test ad server is the service, and then we need the service access token. And here we provide name. Let's call it tutorial. Right. And then we just wait for 6 seconds to make sure it's been fully started. Right, so now we have a setup script. Now we want to write the teardown script. And that's a little bit similar to the setup. Only difference is that we use the remove instance. Right. So now I have a setup and teardown. And now if I run the test again, we should create a test ad server first here, and then it will use that one, and then when the test is done it will remove it. So let's try that again. Let's use debug here as well so we can see this happening not so fast. Okay, but first I have some bugs. Alright, I need to have a personal access token, of course. And that I can find here, and I'm going to move this out of the screen just for now. Just because I don't want to share that with you, exactly the token, since it's secret, should be. And I will set this environment variable with the access token to this value, which you just have to assume that I've done it. I don't want to show you exactly what it is, but it's there now. So, right. Oh, there you saw it. But I guess it didn't have the time to copy it. Right, so let's see. It's creating the tested server. You can see, yeah, it's been spinning it up there. And then we should have the test commencing. Leave it off. Yeah, worked this before. And it was done. And then we should have it removed. May just take a little while, I guess. It can be that it takes a couple of seconds before it's actually removed, I think. Or did I do something wrong here? No, it looks right. Yeah, now it's removed. So then it's gone. So now we have basically isolated test where it spins up a fresh test server, fully clean, doesn't have anything else. No history there that could break things, and then we run the test and then we tear it down. And the next step, of course, what you can do is to add this to a GitHub Action workflow, but I'm going to leave that as an exercise for you. It's not that difficult if you know how to do it. The only thing is you need to run, except all the basic other things, you need to run this playwright install dependency. So you also install the dependencies first. So now I have an automated way that I could put in the build pipeline to test that my video player, in this case this player, actually fires off the tracking events when an ad is played. And this is quite crucial when it comes to ad monetization. So with that, I'd like to say thank you, and I hope to see you again for another tutorial. And if you don't want to miss one, as usual, you can hit the subscribe button, and if you want to know when, you can also hit that notification bell as well. And the channel is Ivan, and hope to see you again soon. Or I won't see you, but you will see me. Yeah, you know. I am now. Bye bye.